In this video, we're gonna see the course structure. So we're gonna start from the fundamentals. Here you are going to learn the basics of the language in JavaScript, data types, functions, local storage, arrays, objects, control structures, iterators, and more. Here you are going to learn the basics of the language, the syntax, reserved keywords, how to create variables, strings, and other important topics that you need to learn before start working with the language. Then once we finish the fundamentals, we are going to start working with the DOM scripting, how to create, how to modify, read and remove HTML elements. Everything is going to be part of the DOM scripting. Next, we're going to build some projects. We're going to put in practice what we have learned in the fundamentals and DOM scripting with some projects. Then we're moving to a more intermediate and advanced topics, such as classes, prototypes, generators, arrow functions, iterators, sets, maps, Ajax, fetch API, promises, callbacks, async await. Everything is going to be covered in this course. Then we're gonna see what is asynchronous JavaScript. You are going to learn how to read and work with REST APIs, and we're gonna build some other projects. These projects will contain everything we have learned in this course, so they are going to be more complete than the first ones. So let's review some of the projects included with this course. We're gonna create a simple simulate email, a shopping cart, a name generator API, display events from the Eventbrite API, a weekly budget app, a cryptocurrency rates API, fetch API, save into local storage, car insurance quotation, and we're gonna develop a lot of different examples. We're gonna master the fundamentals, and then we're gonna start building projects. We're gonna continue learning more intermediate and advanced topics, and we're gonna continue building more projects. For me, the best way to learn is to build projects, and I have prepared several different examples using different techniques so you can become an expert in JavaScript. In this video, I'm gonna show you all the projects that we are going to develop in this course. Each of these projects already has a video where you can see all the functionality for that specific project. They are enabled so you can watch for free. So once you finish watching this video, I recommend that you continue watching the other videos. So one of the projects is this perfect cocktail. You can see we can search cocktails by name. So for example, you can add tequila right here and make a search for cocktails. And this is going to display an image, the cocktail name, the instructions how to prepare this, and also the ingredients. One of the really nice features about this project is that if you click on this button that says plus sign, this is going to add this into the favorites. And also if you click here, this is going to remove the recipe from favorites. So let's click here and let's open my favorites. And you can see we have two items into favorites. From here you can view the recipe or the other one, or you can also remove this. So I'm gonna close this. And you can see we have all the other recipes. We're gonna consume a REST API. I'm gonna show you how to do something like this. If we make another search, we're gonna search for vodka. This is going to return other drinks that match this name. And again, you can click here and this is going to add this into the favorites. So now we have three different items. You can also search by ingredients. So for example, if you make a search here for vodka again, this is going to retrieve all the drinks that have vodka as an ingredient. And you can click here and this is going to display the recipe. Or click here and this is going to retrieve this specific recipe. I'm going to show you how to do everything. And again, you can click here and this is going to save this into favorites. So you can click here and you will have that recipe into your favorites. So you can prepare this or save this for later. And here on the top, you can also make a search by category. You can select by a category, or you can also filter by alcoholic or non-alcoholic drinks. So let's review another project. This one is the weekly budget app. So for example, you define a budget for the week, 500, and then for example, you start adding expenses. So let's add transportation and let's add 150. Click here on add, and you can see we have the list of expenses, and also we have the budget, and the remaining budget is going to be print also. If you continue adding more expenses, let's say that you add food and then you add, for example, 120 in the amount, click here on add. You can see we have added right here, and then the form is going to be reset, and you can see that the remaining budget, the color was green, now is in the color yellow. This means that we have spent at least 50% of the budget. So let's say that you continue adding more. Let's say that we have some other expenses and we add 100 right here, and we're gonna add the expense. You can see that we have left 130. Let's continue adding more. Let's add a book, and let's say that we spend 50 on a book. Click here on add, and now you can see remaining budget now is in the color red. This means that we already have spent 75% of the weekly budget. So let's review another project. You can see here we have this shopping cart. Here we have already some items in the shopping cart. I'm gonna remove these and reload, and you can see we get rid of this. So we're going to have this online courses project, and you can click here and add some items into the shopping cart, and they are going to be right here. These are going to be saved into the local storage. If the user comes back 3 days later, the items are going to be saved into the local storage. From here, the visitor can remove the items from the storage and also from the cart, or they can clear the cart contents. A really nice project where you are going to learn DOM scripting and also local storage. So let's review another project. You can see we have this name generator. We are going to develop this project. There are some persons, for example, that are expecting a baby and they are looking for a name. So for example, you can create the name by the country. So for example, let's say that the person wants to name his baby, for example, with a name from France. And also they can filter if they are expecting a baby boy or a baby girl, for example. Let's select female right here. And then you can select the amount of names that you want to see. So for example, let's say 50. Then we click here on generate. And this is going to generate a list of names from France that are names for female, and it's going to print 15. And let's say that you want to change, for example, to Colombia. Click here on generate, and this is going to generate other 50 names from Colombia for female that they can use to name his baby. So let's see another project. This is going to be a local storage. So for example, we have a tweet. Let's say that we have something like learning JavaScript. And then you're going to have this button that says save tweet. You can see we have tweet added. Click here on OK. And this is going to be saved into the local storage. So this is going to be another project where we are going to practice DOM scripting, these form submissions, and also local storage. So we can add another one. This course is 100% JavaScript without frameworks. And click here on save tweet. You can see we have tweet added. Click here on OK. And now you can see we have 2 items. If you reload these tweets will continue being visible because they are saved into the local storage. If you want to remove one of these, you can click here on this X, and this is going to remove the tweet from the local storage. So let's review another project. You can see we have car insurance quote online. So for example, you can select here from 3 different makes. We have American, Asian, and European. So let's select American, and then we can select the year of the car. So for example, 2080, and then you can select the level of protection, basic or complete. So we're going to select basic. Click here on get quote, and this is going to simulate that we are doing some calculations, and then we're going to print a summary. You can see we have make, we have year, basic, and the total. So based on the input in the form by the user, this value, the total, is going to change. So for example, if you change to complete, get quote, and this is going to print a different value because we have the complete level of protection. And also this total is calculated by the year. So for example, if you add 2000 right here and you click here on get quote, the price is going to be lower. And also the make, for example, Asian is going to be cheaper. So you can see we have a lower value. And finally, the European is going to be the most expensive insurance. So let's click here on get quote and you can see the price is higher. So this project is going to calculate these prices based on the make, the year, and also the level of protection. We are going to write this algorithm in this course. So let's review another project. This is going to be events in your city. We're going to use the Eventbrite API and we're going to display some events that are happening in our city, or we can also make the search by name. So let's say that you are traveling to Los Angeles, for example, Los Angeles, and then you want to assist to an event, and you can filter also by category. So for example, we have music, you can click on music, and then click on search, and this is going to display the events that are related to music in Los Angeles. So it's going to be like this. And then you can go back, for example, and make a search, for example, food and drinks, search, and this is going to clean the previous result, and it's going to print the new results. So you can see now we have different results that are matched in the food and drink category. You can also, for example, make a search for business professional, and this is going to be the results. So a really nice project. We're going to use the Eventbrite API. I'm going to show you how to do everything. So let's review another project. This is going to be an email simulator. So here on the first field, if you leave this empty, you can see we have this red line. So we're going to validate the input fields from this form. In order to pass this validation, you have to provide a valid email address. Something like this will work. You can see now this is green. Then in the subject, you need to add something like hello. We're going to have this button that is going to reset the email. So you can click here and this is going to remove everything. So we can start again. Mail.com, hello. And once we are in the message and you add something, you can see that the send button is going to be enabled. From here we can send the email, and of course this is going to simulate that we are sending something. So we're going to click here on send. You can see we have this GIF, it's going to load, and then we're going to have this GIF that is telling us that the email was delivered, and then the form is going to be reset. Another really nice project where you are going to learn DOM scripting and also how to validate input fields. Finally, this is going to be another project, a cryptocurrency rates calculator. In this project, we can get the price of 100 cryptocurrencies. So let's say, for example, you want to check in United States dollars the value of Bitcoin. Get valuation, and this is going to load, and it's going to retrieve the current value of the Bitcoin in United States dollars. You can see we're going to print the result right here, the price, and then we're going to have some other information, some useful information. For example, in the last hour, the value has increased 1.65% in the last day and in the last 7 days. And if we want to change, for example, to euro, get valuation, this is going to make another calculation, and it's going to return the current value. We're going to use a REST API that is going to print real-time values. So these are the projects for this course. You can also view the projects individually. I have enabled those videos. In those videos, I'm going to show you the projects in greater detail. So for me, the best way to learn is building projects, and you can see we're going to build all of these. So hopefully this sounds interesting, and see you in the course. So let's see the JavaScript ecosystem. Chances are, if you are taking this course, is that you have here any of these terms that we have in the screen. TypeScript, Vue.js, Angular, Node.js, ECMAScript 6, ECMAScript 7, ECMAScript 8. Chances are that you have already written more jQuery code than JavaScript code. And there is no problem with something like that. But maybe you have here, at least once, any of these terms. So first, let's see what is ECMAScript. It was created to standardize JavaScript. Browsers use ECMAScript to interpret JavaScript code. ECMAScript provides the rules, the details, and the guidelines that a scripting language must contain to be considered part of ECMAScript. So let's continue. Let's see, for example, the ECMAScript versions. In 2011, ECMAScript 5.1 was released. This is the actual version. It's fully supported by the browsers, but it's a little outdated. Then we have ECMAScript 2015, which is referred also as ECMAScript 6 or ES6. This is the newest standard, partial support by the browsers, new functions were added, while others become deprecated. Some functions must be transpiled with tools like Babel in order to work with all the browsers. So this is going to be like compiling to an older version of JavaScript. So there is also ECMAScript 2016, which is ECMAScript 7. It added only a few functions. Then we have ECMAScript 2017, which is ECMAScript 8. And it added also new functions. The most important is async await, which you are going to learn in this course also. And there is also another version that is called ES Next. And this is the development version. And most of the functions are proposals. Something important about ES Next is that this version is never released because it always refers to the development version. So in this course, you are going to learn ECMAScript 6, ECMAScript 7, and ECMAScript 8. Together, these are modern JavaScript. So JavaScript is a scripting language that follows the ECMAScript specification. JavaScript is the language where we develop and program, while ECMAScript is the guidelines and the specifications that JavaScript must follow. And chances are that you are taking this course, this JavaScript course, because you want to learn a JavaScript framework. Some frameworks like Angular, React, or Vue.js, among others, are front-end frameworks designed to be used with web applications or highly interactive websites to simplify common tasks and improve the performance. Chances are that you also are looking to learn Node.js. And Node.js is a platform that is built on JavaScript. It's used to run advanced operations and applications on servers, such as querying a database, authenticate users, and others. And finally, NPM is a JavaScript package manager with a lot of open source projects and libraries, and NPM is part of Node.js. So let's review the development environment that we're going to need to continue working with this course. I recommend that you install Google Chrome. In my opinion, Google Chrome is the best browser when you are working with JavaScript. Of course, if you are already comfortable using Edge or Firefox, you can continue working with those browsers. But I'm going to be using Chrome for the rest of the course. And also we're going to need a text editor. And Atom is a really great editor. Sublime Text also in brackets. But in my opinion, when you're working with JavaScript, the best text editor that you will find is Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is free. Visual Studio Code is available in Windows, Mac, and Linux. So I think it's a great option to use Visual Studio Code. So I have already installed Visual Studio Code. And when you install Visual Studio Code, you will find a menu like this on the left. Click on this icon, the last one. And from here you can install new extensions, something really similar that you will find in Sublime Text, or also something really similar that you will find on Atom. So for example, from here you can see that I have already installed some of the extensions, and I'm going to close this. So here are the extensions that I recommend that you install. So first we're gonna need a server, and in my opinion, Live Server is the best extension that you will find in Visual Studio Code. This is going to create a server and has some really nice features. We're gonna take a look at this in just a little. Then also I recommend this one, JavaScript ES6 code snippets. This is also a really nice extension This extension is going to offer some nice snippets. If you scroll a little, you will find some of the snippets here on the bottom, but also you will find, or it will offer, some nice code auto-completion. So in my opinion, these are the most important. Here I have HTML5 snippets, and also if you want, you can install this bracket pair colorizer. This is going to highlight, for example, the braces, the curly braces, or the square brackets. Is going to add different colors. So for example, if you open an if statement, the parentheses are going to be in the same color. Then if you open the curly braces, it's going to highlight them in different colors. So this is going to be really helpful, especially since we're going to write a lot of code through the course. So in my opinion, these are the extensions that I recommend. The most important is going to be Live Server. Make sure that you install Live Server. If Visual Studio Code sends you a message that it needs to restart the editor, then start again. And for example, if I close this, everything from here, we're gonna create the folder. We're gonna open a new folder right here, and I'm gonna call this one Learning.js, something like that. And we're gonna use this to start working with JavaScript. We're gonna learn all the fundamentals in this folder. So then I'm gonna open this in Visual Studio Code. Click and drag this to the editor, and this is going to open a new window. So I'm gonna make this a little bigger, and here you can see we have Learning.js. In Visual Studio Code, you can create a new file clicking on this first icon, and I'm gonna name this index.html. Then since we're using Visual Studio Code, this already has Emmet, which is a really nice tool to write HTML. So for example, you can create the basic HTML5 structure just by adding the exclamation mark and hitting tab. So basically, Emmet is going to allow you to create something like this. For example, a dot in container, and or hit on tab is going to create a div with the class container. You can create other snippets, for example, a UL, and then you can add the greater than, then li by 3, and then you add an anchor, and you click or you hit on tab, and this is going to create an unordered list with 3 list items, and each item is going to have an anchor. So Emmet already comes in Visual Studio Code. You can also install Emmet in Atom or Sublime Text, but you need to install this as a separate extension. So finally, I'm going to add an H1 right here. I'm gonna call this one Learning JavaScript. And if you remember, we install Learning JavaScript. If you remember, we install Live Server. So click on the right button of the mouse, and you will find at the bottom Open with Live Server. You can click here, and this is going to open the server with Live Server. One of the really nice features about this Live Server is that you can, for example, I'm gonna make this smaller, and also this one. You will find this live reload feature. So for example, if I add something like p, hello, and save, you don't have to reload the browser. It's going to detect these changes, and it's going to reload automatically. And this is going to be really nice. So this is going to be the server already running. You can see the URL or the IP is really similar to the local host. So let's say that you finish working in this day. Here on the bottom, you will find this port, and you can click here, and this is going to stop the server from running. And let's say that in the next day, you decide that you want to continue working. There are 2 ways to launch the server. You can right click on the mouse and click on Open with Live Server, or also here on the bottom, you will find this button that says Go Live. If you click here, this is going to open another window with the current server. So this is how you stop and run the local server. And the local server is going to be really helpful when we are working with, especially with Ajax and the Fetch API. So I really recommend that you install a local server like this. There are other servers for Sublime Text and Atom. And also Brackets has its own server, just in the case that you decide to work with one of those editors. So I'm gonna remove this hello. I'm gonna remove also this H1. So in the next video, we're gonna write our first JavaScript program. So see you in the next video. So before we start writing our first JavaScript program, I'm gonna move this to the right. Something like this. And also I'm gonna move the browser over here. I'm gonna make some space so we can see the code, and also we can see the browser in the same window. So if you don't have any experience with JavaScript, I'm gonna show you a quick example of something that can be done in JavaScript but cannot be done in HTML by itself. For example, I'm gonna create a div with the ID welcome. Then all the code that you write in JavaScript is going to be added inside a tag called script, and close the script. So this is going to be really similar if you already have experience working with CSS. In CSS you declare the styles like this. In the case of JavaScript, it's going to be in the script tag. So then I'm going to add something like name. We're gonna add let. You don't have to worry at the moment to understand what is exactly let. We're building the first program in JavaScript, and we're gonna add let name is going to be equal to prompt, and we're gonna ask the visitor what is your name. And if you save this, you can see that we have this window, and this is asking us what is your name. So the prompt function that we have here is going to print this. And if you're using a different browser, Safari, Edge, or Firefox, chances are that this window may be a little different, but the functionality is going to be the same. It's going to ask a question, and you will have this input where you can write something. So everything that you type here is going to be added into this function. And in this example, I want to print this text inside this welcome tag. So we're going to add something like document, and we're going to add something called the get element by ID. This is going to be the way that you select an ID. So for example, we can select this welcome, and we're going to use something called inner HTML. This is going to be a function that is going to select one of these variables. For example, let's say that I type my name here, Juan, and my name is going to be saved into this variable. The way that you take these variables and you insert these variables into HTML, in JavaScript is going to be using the function inner HTML. So finally, I'm going to add inner HTML equals to name. So this way, we are grabbing the value that we're inserting into the prompt, into the variable called name, and then we're inserting this into the div with the ID welcome. So let's reload this, and I'm going to add Juan, and you can see that we have Juan into the HTML. We can make this example a little better. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to click on Shift Tab to make this a little to the left. And right here, I'm going to add single quotes, welcome. And right here, I'm going to add a plus sign. And I'm going to add something like this. So save this, and I'm going to add my name, Juan. And you can see we have welcome, Juan. If you already have experience working with JavaScript, this may look like a silly example, but this is something where JavaScript is really good, adding interaction to our websites. So this is something that cannot be done just by adding HTML or CSS. You will need JavaScript to add this level of interaction. So before we finish, I'm going to create a new file. Normally you will host your JavaScript code into the ROM file. So for example, I'm going to call this one app.js. JS is going to be the extension to save JavaScript code. When you have an style sheet, you save this in .css. When you are working with HTML, you save this as .html. In JavaScript, it's going to be .js. And I'm going to close this. Finally, I'm going to move that code. So we're going to select this, cut, and paste this into the app.js. Then I'm going to open again the index.html. And right here, before the closing or this greater than character, I'm going to add src. Then we're going to add equals, double quotes or single quotes, and I'm going to add app.js. So this is going to be the way that you link your JavaScript file into your HTML. So then I'm gonna remove the space that we have here, save this, save the app.js, and you can see, for example, if I have my name here, Juan, everything is going to work as expected. So in the next video, we're gonna continue working. We're gonna take a look at the Chrome console. The Chrome console is going to be really helpful when we are working with JavaScript. So let's continue in the next video. In this video, under resources, you will find this Snippets modern.js. If you open this file, it's going to contain all the code that I'm using in this course. So once you decompress this, open the folder and click here on index.html. And basically this is going to be all the code that I'm using in this course. So of course, this is the code. When we are working with JavaScript, I'm going to explain what this is doing. But this is in case that you're running into any trouble. If you have a syntax error, a typo, or something doesn't work as expected, you can refer to these code snippets and you will find the right code. And they are using the same name as we have in Udemy. So hopefully you find this helpful. And remember, if you have any trouble with the code, you can also send a message in the Udemy panel. So in this video, we're gonna review the Chrome console. I'm gonna remove the code from the previous video, and I'm gonna make this a little bigger. And I'm gonna right click, and you open the Chrome console just by clicking right click here on inspect. And I'm gonna move this to the bottom. And from here you can select console. One of the nice features is that you can rearrange this. You can add this, for example, in the first as the first item in the menu. And I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna show you another way that you can open the console. You can click here on the top, View, Developer, and you will find the Developer Tools and JavaScript console. So this is going to open also the console. The console is going to be really helpful when you have some trouble with your code. In the console, it's going to print an error or something. Also, you can use this to check if a value exists, or you can send values from your JavaScript files to the console. Let's review those in this video. So let's start working, and we're gonna test the following commands. If you remember, in the previous videos, we use a function called prompt. We can use prompt right here. Inside quotes, we're going to add, what's your name? And I'm gonna add this double quotes, single quote right here. And I'm gonna add what's your name. You can click on enter and you can see this is going to execute. This command is going to print the prompt right here. So in the console you can practice your code. So for example, let's say that you can add something like 2 plus 2. You can see it's going to print 4. And 3 minus 1, it's going to print 2. 4 times 4 is going to print 16. So any JavaScript code is going to work in the console just fine. You can click here on this icon. This is going to clear the console. And then, for example, you can also add document. If you remember in the previous example, I added this document. But what is exactly the document, right? You can click here on enter and you can see we have document right here. You can click here on the triangle and you can see that we have the same HTML that we have here on the index.html file. So for example, let's say that I open the body and you can see that here on the bottom we have the script src app.js. So document is the way that you refer to this index.html file. So for example, let's say that we have this welcome and we can add something like welcome. Save this and I'm gonna open again this. And from here on the console, you can add something like document, query selector. And then I'm going to add, well, I'm going to change this to get element by ID. This is the one that we already saw. And of course, we're going to explain this in greater detail in upcoming videos. You can enter this and you can see that we have div ID, welcome, and welcome. So for example, you can test if your code is working here on the console and check if an element exists on your HTML files But normally you will send the information from your files to the console, and I'm gonna show you how. Let's open the app.js, and right here I'm gonna add console.log, and I'm gonna add hello. Save this, and you can see that we have in the console hello. So this is going to be really helpful when you are working with JavaScript code to check that you are sending the right values right here. So for example, I'm gonna remove this. You can send also a number, 20 for example, or 987, and you can check that this value is working as expected. So the console log command is going to be really helpful. You can also send out other values such as true or false or things like that. So let's see, for example, let's create a variable. Create a variable and send the values in the console. So for example, let's say that we create a variable called learning. It's going to be equals to learning JavaScript, and I'm gonna send this learning variable to the console. I'm going to add console.log, and then we send the variable learning. Save this, and you can see that we have learning JavaScript into the console. So this is a nice way that you can check that your variables are holding the correct data. I'm gonna remove this. You can also send arrays to the console or through the console.log, and I'm gonna add square brackets 1, 2, 3. Save this, and you can see here on the console we have this 1, 2, 3. You can click here on this triangle, and you can see that we have an array. And of course, we're gonna cover arrays and methods in greater detail. So for example, this is console.log. You have other options. So for example, you have console.table. And here on console.table, you can add, for example, 1, 2, 3 again. Save this, and this is going to print the values in a table. You can also remove these contents. And let's add a message here, for example, oops, something went wrong. And you can add something like console.error in this case. And it's going to print this as an error. Something, if you already have experience, for example, with jQuery or React, they use these kind of messages when you did something wrong. So for example, we can copy this error that we have and create several copies. Save this. You can see that we have several errors, and you can clear this just by clicking in this icon, or you can also type console.clear, and this is going to clear the console. You can see we have console was cleared. So this is a really nice handy function that you can use. Also, you can send warnings to the console.warn, and you can add something like a warning. Something like that is going to be printed in a yellow color. So you have log, you have error, you have warn, you have different options that you can use. So for example, there is another one that is really handy. For example, I'm going to remove this. Right here on the top, I'm going to add console.time, and I'm going to call this one test. Here at the bottom, I'm going to add console.time again, and I'm going to add time end, and I'm going to add again the name test. Save this, and you can see that we have the time that this code take to execute. So this is basically the console. You can send any values from your JavaScript file just by using console.log or another messages, as we already saw. So for example, let's say you can also send console.log 2 + 2, and it's going to print this value. So you can always check the status of your code, that everything is working, and check, for example, the values that you have when your code is executing just by using the console. So in the next video, we're gonna take a look at how to create variables in JavaScript. So let's continue working in the next video.